Oh, so today I'll talk about Space Cases Season 2 episodes 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't have a ton to say, but I did come up with some things that I couldn't have come up with when I first, on previous viewings. And as I've often said, that is the delight in rewatching things like Space Cases. Definitely come to more and more come to the conclusion that this is no knocking any other Nickelodeon shows, but this was a gem in Nickelodeon's crown. Perhaps the gem in Nickelodeon's crown. I don't think there are other shows like this. I think they tried, but this is a very special show. Now, the first of the episodes that I'm going to talk about, All You Can Eaty, kind of demonstrates why. On the Space Cases TV website, there's only one bit of trivia in the trivia section, and that is that Nickelodeon was very heavy-handed in the creation of this episode, and that the creators, Peter David and Bill Mumy, were not very involved. And you can kind of tell it is sillier than other episodes, and it includes more Nickelodeon-type slime-type, not slime exactly, but slime-ish types of gags. But it includes my favorite Nickelodeon star, Michelle Trachtenberg, Harriet the Spy, in my opinion, the greatest children's movie ever made. And Danny Tamborelli, who I, of course, have fond memories of, but not like Michelle Trachtenberg, who I continue to be a fan of her television work today. And a very interesting superhero movie, if you're looking for an interesting off-the-beaten-path superhero movie, The Scribbler. Not going to say anything more about it. See if you can find her in it, but she's a big part of it, but see if you can find her. So anyway, I'll talk about the thing. So in this episode, All You Can Eaty, it stars another creature that somehow they manage to get aboard the ship, even though this time they vacuumed the creature aboard the ship from, I guess they were vacuuming from a planet. I don't know exactly how that works, but in comes this creature's a little fuzzy creature, and he kind of squawks, and he's got weirdly arranged blonde hair, and I said in the middle of the episode out loud, it looks like a baby Donald Trump caricature, and I don't think that's what they were going for in the early 90s. My understanding is nobody cared who he was in the early 90s, but if people were doing if the episode had come out today and it looked like that, it would very clearly be a Donald Trump. It continues to be obnoxious in the sounds that it makes. It dangerously consumes everything in sight, and it wasn't intended to be, but it's Donald Trump. E.T. is Donald Trump. Even the idea that it starts out kind of cute and fuzzy, and Jimmy Fallon ruffles his hair, and but you were warned by Harriet the Spy that it was dangerous, and you didn't listen, and it almost eats the ship. Couple of other notes, and this is this one, it kind of goes throughout these 4 episodes. I think they have different costumes in each episode, and in this one they're kind of back to the school uniforms, and Susie has one, okay, so she has a school uniform. Okay, maybe she's wearing Catalina's school uniform. Catalina probably had some extras around so she could change clothes on the ship, but it has an opening for her gills. Okay, well, maybe she made the adjustment herself. Maybe it's a skill that she has so that she can have openings for her gills in everything that she wears, except she has the solid color undershirt like they all have, and that does not have openings for her gills. So then what's the point of the outer thing having but nitpicking is all you can do with great stuff. I think this is the one. Do I have it? Is that, I wrote down another hairdo for Harlan. So he had the kind of I don't know what else to call it, but the Will Smith kind of flat top, flat on the sides, buzz cut type thing for all of season 1 and then a couple of episodes of season 2. King of the Hill, they braided his hair, and then he wasn't going to keep it, but Susie said she liked it. So now he, I guess, took the braids out, and so it's not crew cut, but it's kind of looks like the braids, but it's not braided. So yet another Harlan hairdo. And I think his hair kind of waffles through the, and I'm not just talking about in the next episode where he gets the full Andromedan mane. His hair kind of does the same thing as the kids' costumes do. Let's see. I did find I think I've always wondered this. Just, is there a planet nearby where Michelle Trachtenberg and Danny Tamborelli are hanging out and broadcasting from? Are they in a spaceship? Are they alone? Do they have adults? Are they the adults of their species? They have spung masks. Did they make the spung masks themselves, or can you buy them at the Galaxy store? I don't know. If spung are, well, I guess we make masks of our villains, to our real life villains too. So I guess that kind of makes sense. But it's still, this time it struck me as, is that okay to do in their world? Probably. Let's see, a couple more things. Oh, and just one more thing about them. Are they lonely? Are we supposed to feel bad for these two? They pull pranks on people because they're lonely. They have each other, and they both seem like fun people. But anyway, and then the last thing I wrote down is Davenport tries to order Bova to zap Edie, and then she tries to order Rosie to heat blast Edie, and both of them refuse, and it kind of just exemplifies well, maybe not to this grand extent, but it kind of feels like the show's point is everybody's lost in space, everybody goes a little crazy, and it's not always the adults are saying the smart thing that should happen and the kids don't have the judgment. Sometimes it's the other way around. And they both refuse to kill Edie with their superpowers. So that was a rewarding thing. So the next episode, Both Sides Now, titled after a Joni Mitchell song from Love Actually. And it is one of 2 Joni Mitchell songs that I have ever heard in my life. I don't know why. I am not educated in Joni Mitchell, but I need to remedy that. And I have one like this. It's the first time we see the ship has windows. Oh, yeah, so at the end, I guess at the end of the episode, they all sit down in their kind of lounge area, and there's kind of a bay window behind them, and it kind of zooms out from the bay window, and then you see finally other windows in the ship, and the ship was kind of a solid, I'm going to say blob just because of the design with the veins and everything. It's clearly in the shape of a bird or fish or dragon or bat, but it's got a blob-like quality, but now that it's more streamlined and mechanical looking, it has windows, and this is the first time we see windows lighting up and stuff like that. So in this episode, they are back in jumpsuits. Oh, and Susie's hair was weird, and I'm going to say Catalina-ish in All You Can Eaty. So her hair going through something too. I don't know if maybe I don't want to get paranoid and conspiratorial about Nickelodeon having a heavy hand, and I really like Nickelodeon as a company. But I just wonder if the jumps in design and the different looks of, we want them to appeal more to kids, and they're too weird. I don't see how this would have affected Susie's hair, or Harlan's hair for that matter. But the costumes and the fact that some of the costumes look like, adult onesies. A little, I don't know. So anyway, yeah, I wrote down Harlan's hair somewhere in between braids and not braids. And this is the one where Davenport uploads a ton of information. It's kind of the opposite of when she is uploaded into the Crysta. It's like the Crysta is uploaded into her. And so now she has this giant head full of knowledge, and she solves things, solves problems, invents things throughout the episode, ridiculous things. Apparently one of the cut lines was that she figured out why fools fall in love. And that's the kind of scriptwriter's dream where you just throw in all these ridiculous things, and not all of them can stay because the episode's only 20 minutes long, but still. Um, so she kind of uses it like if she were a Pokemon, it would be called Psybeam. She zaps from her head. It's like Mewtwo. She zaps from her head a purple beam at the students and Velma, and they all turn into each other because they've all been complaining that their polar opposites on the crew have it easier because of the type of person they are. So Harlan and Radu switch places, Rosie and Bova switch places, and Susie and Thelma switch places. Um, and so, which is a fun thing to see because we get to see, for instance, Paige Christina and Anique Materne, who plays Thelma, are buried under a lot of makeup for the most part, for most of these episodes. And so we actually get to see their faces, and probably, I'm guessing it was Thelma's actual hair, but not necessarily Rosie's, because it probably, or I don't know how her hair really looked, but it looked like it was a wig to look more like Bova. But we get to see what they look like without a pink face or without a robotish face. It's not that it hid their features, it's just when you see someone who is bright pink and not like rosacea naturally bright pink, you're not seeing really a human being, a human face. And so being able to see her actual human face was nice. And same with Thelma. And being able to see Thelma's hair and have her not speaking in the robotic way. Susie, on the other hand, she looked almost exactly like Thelma, which is another thing with makeup. Paige Christina was not going to look necessarily like Bova without makeup. But Susie, Rebecca Herbst, I think is the actor's name, Bova looked a lot like Rosie, and Rebecca Herbst looked a lot like Thelma because you're putting the face on as opposed to taking the face off. Again, not the Animorphs episode and not the Johnny Travolta, Nicolas Cage movie, just taking the face off of Rosie and putting it on Bova. So you put the face on Rebecca Herbst. She looked a lot like Thelma, and she had the same halting way of robot speak. And so she sounded, of all of them, she was most convincingly not even herself as the other character, but just the other character. And it was kind of cool. Let's see. And they really got into playing their opposites. Although Bova has one moment where he's kind of back into cynical Bova. It's almost like Bova's personality is so powerful that even if he becomes a Mercurian, he's still going to say something snarky. Let's see. And it also, as I mentioned, Radu and Harlan switch places, and Harlan has the Andromedan mane, and Radu has not the crew cut like Harlan had, but kind of wavy, possibly Christian Eyre's real hair. I don't know exactly, but just wavy, nice-looking, almost surfer dude kind of hair, but it frames their faces differently. So even though they're not wearing pounds of makeup, their faces look different as well. So it was really interesting just for to look at. But also, of course, they learn what it's like to be the other. And the heaviest lesson is Harlan learning. Radu has the swirly ears that can hear everything, but Radu's had them all his life and can control what he hears and what he doesn't hear, kind of like Superman. But Harlan gets these for the first time as an adult. He doesn't have to practice, and he's overwhelmed by the sounds. He also learns Radu has such strength. He learns what it is to be a powerful, physically powerful Andromedan, and one of the things that occurs to him is, why didn't he snap me like a twig? He could have. I'd like to snap him like a twig right now, and I could. I know I shouldn't, but you get a sense of why Radu is so calm and peaceful. Because he knows that it's kind of like the Hulk. He knows that if he loses control, people will get hurt. So now here's a little bit of a logic pretzel. Davenport uses the power of the life source power of the Crysta, which gave her all of her knowledge, to change their bodies. So the Crysta was involved, but when their bodies change, the Crysta doesn't recognize them and won't let them pilot the ship. But the Crysta was involved, so the Crysta should know what happened, but maybe the Crysta can feel but not think. Although Thelma says it's a judge of character in another episode. So the Crysta is mysterious, and that's one of the things that makes it one of the best spaceships ever invented in science fiction. When the Crysta doesn't recognize its crew, it decides to speed off to Spung territory, and it never says why. Maybe it's looking for Elmira, an old friend, a familiar face. I don't know. It doesn't say why. So that doesn't get explained, and I thought that was. I mean, it puts them in peril. They need to be in peril so that they are motivated to quickly learn their lessons and work as a team. But still, that's a random thing for the Crysta to do. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't make sense. I also wrote down, does it think that it's empty because it doesn't recognize them, or does it think that it's been invaded, like, by germs? It also says that the ship increased the size of Davenport's head so that she could handle all of the extra information. Let's see. Oh, I think I've mentioned before, there's Thelma talking to herself so much, but then in this episode, she talks alone in a room a lot, but she's talking to the Crysta, so that, like, she's actually begging the Crysta to understand her, because she's not, whatever, not psychically or telepathically, but like mechanically linked to it on the same Wi-Fi as the Crysta. So she's addressing the Crysta directly, and that made me think, oh, she's talking to the Crysta when she's talking to herself. And then when we just can't hear the Crysta answering back. They start, and so maybe Earther is just something that villains call people from Earth, but because Bova or somebody refers to someone as human, and they start using the word human instead of Earther. So that was just, I like them using Earther. And I wrote down, Susie is creepy as Thelma. She was a little bit creepy as Thelma. All right, next episode, Mother Knows Best. I didn't like this one very much. It should have been really creepy, and toward the end it's really creepy because the Crysta wanders into this area of space where there are a bunch of dead ships. There's howling and moaning that can be heard, which, you know, doesn't necessarily go with in the vacuum of space. No one can hear you scream, but it works, and it creates a creepy, and it's kind of a orangish glow. It's a very creepy environment, and toward the end, when Thelma explains that what's going on, that the voices are echoes of hundreds of years. I don't even care how that works in physics. That's haunting, and the whole episode should have been haunting and creepy, but they just jump right into the Ma being, the godlike Ma, having an influence over everybody, so they don't start out normal and then suddenly become bratty kids who get everything they want. They're just that for the whole episode until they slowly start to realize we are in danger. But it would have. I would have done it differently. It's like something. It's like the monster movies or the Animorphs. I can't like. It's okay to not love every single episode. And this one I thought was not well put together. It was very like sickly sweet, and I mean you could tell they were supposed to be bratty kids, but you didn't have anything to compare it to from earlier in the episode. All the food and prizes that Ma gives them are all sickly sweet, and the whole episode kind of I have avoided this episode in the past. Which is just not to say that I haven't watched it when I watched them all in sequence, because I just watched them all in sequence, but I don't look forward to it like I look forward to most of them. Let's see. So I don't really have much to say about this one. The lesson is, of course, that it's not necessarily the best thing to get everything you want from a parental figure. Thelma is suspicious from the start because she is not, a biological organic being who was mothered and who is missing her mother, essentially. Like they're all missing their mothers. Radu also, uh, he's not all in against Ma like Thelma is from the beginning, but he also has the life experience of not having had a mother, and so and he also, being physically stronger, perhaps has a stronger will, so he doesn't get sucked in. Um, it's never really explained other than with bright flashes on their faces, orangish pink flashes on their faces, how the spell is cast. In other episodes, they explain there's a gas leak or some chemical leaks into so they could have done that. Like Ma is a gaseous being, a gas planet that they wandered into, and that it got into the Crysta that way. But they don't explain how she has her influence, how she turns them into bratty kids. They just go right into it. Um, and yet we find out that both Ma and uh, Harlan, okay, yes, Ma and Thelma are susceptible to Susie's mind reading powers, even though neither of them really has a mind. Um, but again, science fiction, fantasy, we don't have to ask that question. But it was notable. And it also just goes to how powerful Susie is. It was interesting to see her wandering around Thelma's mind, because Thelma's mind is, of course, not a mind. It's a computer database. It's tubes and wires and things, and she wanders through one of the tubes, which conveniently has an interface inside it in case a tiny person ends up inside Thelma's head and needs to access data. So that's that episode. And then finally, don't have much to say about this one either, although I loved it as a Bova featuring episode as a kid. Again, I wrote down why so many costume changes. I don't know what their outfit is in this one. It's just every episode they have a new outfit. And Susie's outfit from her first appearance was so cool. She even had, and this was to hide the fact that it was actually Jewel State on the set with the cast, but she had a cloak and a hood, which means that during their unplanned dimensional swap, she was wearing a cloak and a hood. So she just hangs around in a cloak and a hood. What are things like on her planet in her dimension? That would be a great, I said it would be a great spin-off. Catalina in another dimension, but everybody else walking around looking like druids with purple velvet uniforms. But they don't go back to her outfit at all, and they should. I mentioned the previous one where Rosie was learning not to spill secrets, that this is her becoming a teenager and her growing pains. In this one, it's Bova kind of, he's always been the snarky, sarcastic one, but in this one he's more brooding, more angsty, he's becoming a teenager. I wrote down, did Rahi Azizi, he's the actor who plays Bova, get to keep the Bova merchandise, because they put his Bova face, to my knowledge, they did not make Space Cases merchandise for us, the consumer, but they put Bova's face all over these things. They made little antenna earmuff things, which I would have loved to have as a kid. I think I probably tried to make one and stick it to my head. But I wrote down, did he get to keep any of them after that? He probably has a room full of them. I don't know if he acts anymore, but he's probably got a room full of Bova stuff. How mysterious is the Crysta that a room disappears and it is replaced as a spiraling void? So the plot of this episode is that Bova makes contact with a planet called Neon, which is kind of a Las Vegas show business type planet, and he goes into show business himself. He doesn't want to leave his comfortable environment. He doesn't want to leave it all ultimately, but the guy he's contacted, who kind of abducts him contractually, I guess, because he finds out that Bova lied about an eternal life potion that has kept him young, even though he's 2 million years old and looks like a teenager. So he and this guy's got to be powerful too, because he removes that entire men's dormitory of the Crysta and transports it to the planet, which is that not only is that powerful, but it is replaced not by empty, just the underneath the floor and the exposed brick walls before the drywall went up. It's a kind of swirling void. It looks like you're looking down into a tornado when they when the other space cases arrive at the room and they're looking for Bova, and they find that the room is gone, and instead there's this like vortex. And so, as just one more way in which the Crysta works in mysterious ways, it replaced when a physical room was taken out of the Crysta, it became a storm of some kind. Anyway, that is all I wrote down for that one. And the video is still relatively short. So next episode of this will be the last 3 episodes of Space Cases, and then I'll talk about what I'm going to do when I don't have Space Cases to watch or talk about anymore. In the meantime,